we go from there.
I'm gonna let some more better lighting in.
Yeah, rad.
Perfect.
I've
It's looking
uh,
good.
I've resigned to this being the best light I can do. I'd like better lighting, but this is this is okay. I have a light here.
Your mic is nice though. Looks like a nice mic.
Yeah, been doing this for 3 years, so slowly I've been upgrading the equipment. Not all at once because it's a very expensive habit, or
Oh yeah,
very
it's
Oh,
expensive
I can't
hobby or
imagine.
yeah.
profession. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go to Unlonely and let's make sure that we are streaming there live because that's really the only place that matters when we're doing these things. Um, yep, we are live. Fantastic. I will check on X. And if you are watching anywhere else live, make sure if you want to have a conversation with us, go check us out on Unlonely. Our channel is, we are at unlonely.app/channels/crypto sapiens. And I already see people dropping their GMs and hellos and all that fun stuff. So we can get started. As usual, thank you everybody for joining us to another episode of the Creators Take Action podcast here with my good friend Peachy. And of course, we're covering a lot of the news that are happening in the new creator economy, especially though that's happening on Farcaster. And today, I'm very excited because we have Brennan with us. And for anybody who doesn't know, Brennan's going to go ahead and give an introduction to themselves, but Brennan's the creator of Tavern, and we're there. At least I'm there twice a week, at least. And Peachy, I think you're there a lot more than that.
Love the
Um,
novels.
looks like we accidentally had Brennan drop off, but while he reconnects, Peachy, how are you doing today?
I am
Oh, sorry
good.
about that. I just lost internet for a bit.
Oh, well, we have you back.
Yeah, we
All right, we're
assumed it
back.
was the Noggles,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, the Noggles just crashed. They were too
crashed
strong.
everything.
They
It's
just crashed the
too
server.
much power. Too much power.
So, GM Peachy, you were telling us how you're doing.
GM. No, it's a good day in Farcaster land. I feel like it's been a weird few weeks, but it seems like lots of little incremental changes are starting to happen, and I think a lot of folks lately have felt, a little stressed, a little weird, and it's a good time to reflect and see that, like, the same way, right? When you're dieting, like, don't check the scale every day, check it every week. Because if the day-to-day stuff can get to you, right? So Farcaster's making a lot of little incremental changes, and it might seem like a lot of things are happening really quickly, but just step back from it and kind of think week to week, month to month, what does it look like? And I think that's much, much easier to deal with and frame it. I think projects that move too quickly, change things every 24 to 48 hours, have seen that to have some trouble here and struggle, because even though Farcaster moves fast, it doesn't move in like 24-hour cycles. So I think it's a good thing for everybody to like step back, take a little bit bigger point of view, take a breath, and recognize that change is inevitable, but we all are going through it together and we'll figure it out. And the team's receptive to changing things if they're not working. So we're all here for a reason. We all feel like this place is special. So we just got to kind of go with it and embrace that the only thing that's constant is change.
Ain't that the truth? Well, good. I mean, first of all, thank you, Peachy, for continuing to do the work that you do. Um, I think people recognize that. I hope people recognize that you're consistently active on many platforms, advocating for these people who I guess we've been calling them the invisibles, right? Because the network sometimes chooses to, through a variety of means, not see them. Used to be power badges, and the meta has changed a bit, but you're consistently providing information and helping us kind of figure out the best way to build on Farcaster, and also introducing kind of some of the new products that are being developed for the platform. I know we've been able to bring some of those on to this conversation here as well. Brennan, how are you doing? Honestly, like very excited to have you on here. Just thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it doesn't cut out. It keeps cutting out. So I think it's because it tries to do that uploading at the same time because it's like the simultaneous broadcast. But yeah, doing pretty good. Recovering from this weird cold that's going around. Yeah, and just yeah, hanging out in taverns. It's been really fun. A lot of really cool engagements been happening. Not used to that because for almost a year, it's basically just been Nouns Town Square every day, and that's about it. Other than a few occasional, noun proposal taverns. We did technically have Seth Green on. We had Bob Burnquist on back in the day, but other than those two famous people, it's been pretty quiet. So it feels kind of cool to get a bunch of new folks that I haven't really ever engaged with. So, like Peachy's been pretty awesome, and like yourself too, Humpty. So, like, yeah, it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to hear kind of the origin of Tavern if you don't mind. I mean, you don't have to do a full intro to yourself unless you really want to. Really kind of what the inspiration was. Personally, as a OG Clubhouse user with a club of like over 40,000 people at one point, I am a huge proponent to audio only platforms. Really missed it when, kind of everyone changed over to spaces, and also have missed it since, I guess since it's changed the way that it operates. So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of what inspired you, and, what was kind of maybe the V0 of it.
Yeah, sure. I might have to kill my camera because I still keep Riverside just keeps kicking me out. Um,
No worries. Peachy has made us very comfortable with a black screen when we're speaking to people, so no worries.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool.
that's
So
all my
hopefully
fault. You're
this works
good.
better and doesn't kick me out. Yeah, so the inspiration for Tavern was I get bored really easily doing certain things. So one, it was just like let me build a new type of product that I haven't done before. Audio streaming is definitely something I haven't really messed around with. Um, and I was really tired of X Spaces, private Discord calls, mostly when dealing with like nouns proposals. I really thought there was a better way to handle public DAO governance and just overall discourse. So I was like, oh, well, let me take a stab at trying to build something that would facilitate these public conversations in a much more meaningful way, right? And that was kind of it. So probably about a year and a half ago, I started just building this on the side. I pretty much been kind of like I would call it a failed serial entrepreneur, as in like I've done startups since 2010, like right out of college. None of them have taken off. I've just been very fortunate about being in crypto that entire time. So I was able to fund my terrible, ambitious projects on the back of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so, this is just one of those projects. I was like, oh, it doesn't really matter if it fails or not fails. I'll just build something that I really like. Um, yeah, that was kind of the impetus of building it. And it was cool. It was cool to play around with new technology. And oh, can you guys still hear me? Because I think I'm getting kicked out again.
I hear you loud and clear.
It says Riverside keeps doing it. It says your recording has stopped. Something went wrong and you aren't being recorded anymore.
I would ignore the recording upload notifications. What
Oh,
happens
okay.
is they usually get stored locally. So if there are any issues uploading the content throughout the conversation, we can upload it afterwards, because it's all getting stored locally anyways.
Oh, okay. It just like doesn't allow you to remove the pop up. Anyways,
Oh,
so I'll just let it sit there. Um, what was I saying?
building something for yourself,
Oh yeah,
something that you enjoyed.
yeah. So I enjoyed it when we started getting it built. I hit up 4156 and I was like, hey man, I'd love for you to like, share your opinions on some of the top proposals. You don't have to do all the proposals, but some of the big ones that usually have like a high, you know, um, amount of outflow, crypto or USDC or whatever, or ones that are really, you get excited about or want to talk about, and we can get the proposal creators on board. And so we started this like sort of pseudo podcast and kind of got a lot of attention pretty early on, which kind of drove some of the features that I was building. But then, he kind of stepped away. I think he was getting kind of overwhelmed by a lot of that attention too. And we won't get into too much of that, but like it got me really excited. I was like, oh, this is like kind of works. And so I started going around and, talking to Downtown Square, which was doing a lot of the spaces. And I was like, hey, would you guys be willing to like run both, or, maybe move over to like sort of a Nouns created product, which I think Nouns is so good because they do that. They really, really support Nounish created stuff, right? I mean, like Zora is one of those products, right? And the Agora team and everything else, like Nouns Camp and everything. So yeah, and they did that, and it was really good. And yeah, it wasn't in, and I had been on Farcaster for a bit. I think I'm less than 10,000, FIDs. But I didn't really use it much. And then when they rolled out frames, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I love this idea of in social feed applications. I thought that was kind of genius. And so I was like, oh, I'll just build like a really quick one for Tavern just so I can like immediately get people to come over from Tavern from Farcaster, with a validated login, using Naynar's validate API. And yeah, that felt really good. And then it was just kind of coincidental that when I had my, health change was the moment when everyone just started using Tavern. Like, like I got this huge, spike in attention. And so it was kind of sad from my perspective because I was like, man, I could be whipping out features and, fixing all the bugs that people are having like immediately. Cause I usually code like freaking 10, 12 hours a day. Like I enjoy it because most of the time it's like stuff that I want to build, right? It's different. Yeah. And now that I can only do like 1 or 2 hours, it's slow, and maybe that's good. I think even Peachy said it's like, maybe because I'm not changing things constantly, I'm not really pissing off that many people. Yeah. And so it's just been really fun, but a lot of the joy that I get is just popping into these taverns and listening to people. I'm a very internet person, as in like I've kind of been raised on the internet. My dad was a mechanical engineer for a lot of early computer companies, so I had a computer really really early. Like he worked for HP, Compaq, IBM, Dell, and then Amazon, for Amazon Web Services. And so yeah, so I've been sort of that internet person. So it feels good just to hop in and listen to people's and their stories and stuff. Much like this podcast and things like
Yeah.
this.
It's interesting. So two things. The first is I still remember, and I'm aging myself here, so GM, y'all are welcome to guess how old I am. I remember getting the AOL CD-ROM and
Yeah, absolutely.
plugging it or popping it into my computer,
Heck yeah.
and then what was that, PG?
I was like, heck yeah. I had to unmute for a second because I could hear the dial-up noise in my
Yes.
head.
Yeah, in your head.
And
Yeah.
I was just like, cha-choo, cha-choo, and
Like, by the
Get
way,
off the phone. Someone get off the phone. I gotta
I
speak
gotta
to these
use
people.
the internet. I gotta talk to my AOL chat room friends.
that's
Come on.
right. That's right. And that's where I was heading. Like I remember early I guess social platforms were very different, obviously, from where we're at today, like night and day, where you had to, kind of install this application on your computer, which then allowed you to access the internet. You had to make sure no one was on the phone to make sure to get onto the internet, as strange as that sounds. And you then had to open up these chat rooms where probably some of the more anonymous friendly platforms, to be fair, because you could embody any persona, and introduce yourself to a
Yeah.
world of people, like, or a bunch of people from all around the world. So it's just really interesting, right, to see how that's evolved. Obviously now with platforms like Tavern, people can continue to own their own identity, which I think is quite unique. And in fact, we were talking about that for a little bit with Peachy, and also with you, Brennan, in terms of like how people can go on Tavern and continue to reveal just enough about themselves so that they can embody their digital persona more completely. So, anyways, I personally think Tavern is really cool. And what to your point that you also made about like coding less and breaking fewer things, I was on a space yesterday. I think it was the Noun Square, where I think something did break because you pushed an update
Yeah, I
during the call.
yeah. That still happens. The thing is I have to kind of pick my moments when my brain is working. I'm like, oh shit, I should probably code right now. Um, and so I just take advantage of that and I try to push out updates. So I was like, oh, whatever. There's an Town Square. They've gone through the worst of it. They've seen it crash multiple times. So I was like, I'll just push right now.
Yeah, definitely. But Peachy, I mean, did you want to kind of ask any questions here, because I know you're definitely one of the power users there. I would say I'm there consistently, but I think you're there almost 3, 4 times a week across different spaces. Like, what are some of the things that you've personally seen that you really enjoy about Tavern, or maybe want to see on Tavern?
Oh my gosh. Well, I just love that I feel like every time you push an update, for me it's surprise and delight. So I feel like I'm using it enough where I'm delighted instead of frustrated, which I feel like is the best side of the equation to be on. Because my last power hour, I'm used to at the end of the space, I can grab a transcript, which is fantastic, because then I can pull out little great things people said. And if people have questions, I'm like, wait, we talked about this, we've totally got it. And then I noticed for the first time, it said, hey, here's a list of everyone who attended and how long they talked. And I was like, well, this is great, because for a long time, several of us have been using audio spaces as this kind of instant proof of human, right? So like it's
Yeah.
really hard on Farcasters sometimes because a lot of us are PFPs. A lot of people speak very formally, and sometimes you're even using like translators like ChatGPT to speak to people in English, since most Farcasters speak English and they want to partake in the conversation. And sometimes it's hard to go through your feed and know like who's real and who's not. And if you can't tell really quickly, you're not as inclined to follow. But as soon as I hear somebody speak online, I'm like, boom, follow, real person, done. Like, don't even think twice about it, because all I really care about is like, are you a real human here that wants to do real, genuine interaction? And that's why I encourage so many people. I'm like, listen, just jump into any space, say hi, because that social instant credit boost you get from people saying, wow, that's a real person with their real voice, is like something that would take months to build up that kind of trust on text, where you get it almost instantly with voice, right? And I'm sure in 10 years, the AI is going to, have a new layer where they
Yeah.
can fake it and we'll have to go through this all over again. But like right now, it's a thing, right? Like a low value spam farm account is probably not going to log into a tavern and get a computer voice to like come and say hi and jump in the conversation. Like it's still just a little too complicated.
It,
But real people will pop up on stage and say, "Hey, just wanted to say hi. I'm a real person. I don't have anything to say right now, but just wanted to wave." And everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're a real person. This is so great." Like everybody follow this person. And we've had so many spaces where people who felt invisible were suddenly instantly visible, instantly known as people. And that's been really magical, right? And just having that list now of like who is in the space is so easy, because several people were trying to drop NFTs and do this whole proof of human thing so that we could find each other later. And you just probably had no idea we were doing that, but just made something that used to be hard and required all these screenshots and then looking people up on Airstack trying to find their wallets. And you just made it like one click for me. So thank you. And the closed captioning is magical. I don't know what you're doing on the back end to produce these transcripts and these captions in real time, but it's fantastic. We have a lot of folks in my community specifically who are non-native English speakers, or we even have some members of the deaf community, and they desperately want to participate, and the closed captioning lets them. And I just can't thank you enough for building in some of these accessibility features, because lots of people are using them in lots of different ways, and it's making a space where I think audio is intimate, it is fantastic, but it leaves people out. and I don't want to leave anybody behind. And Tavern is really good, even if that wasn't your intention of making sure no one's left behind. And I sincerely appreciate that as a person hosting these spaces.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely kind of a side effect feature that yeah, you're right. I honestly didn't think about. A lot of it was to basically feed into an AI bot that I had been working on earlier this year. I was like, oh, it'd be really cool because I wanted like a companion AI bot that like would take in conversation transcripts like real time, and then you could ask it questions. Like it basically becomes informed on the tavern as it sits there, and you could like ask it questions. But yeah, the side effect of having the transcript makes it available. And then like you said, like I think something I've been working on is like the language, text to speech, and with where your own AI voice that you can set and augment, which is where we start to break down that are you human, are you not? Because to like open it up for deaf people to like have an audio voice, obviously you're allowing bots to also have like their voice as well. But then you run it through an AI transmission that says like, is this a bot or is it a human? Honestly, I've been experimenting with that, and it is really, really good at self-detection. Like it's actually pretty good at determining if this thing is probably a human or a bot. We just make a lot more mistakes, and obviously you could write or train a model that does that and makes it more human. Um, but like our pauses, our ums, and all that kind of stuff just like feeds in and feels like mine. Like it just I don't know. It's pretty easy to detect. But yeah, I mean that's one of the big features I want to roll out like early September is one with the chat. That's a huge one. But also to be able to text to speech when needed.
That is so cool. And I totally understand your hesitation there, where it's like, man, do we like enable the bots to talk to us? But at the same time, I can see like the Fortune article about you where you like made the Turing test happen, right? Where like when we can't tell if the people we're talking to are humans or bots, like, that's Nobel Prize winning shit. So like go for it, do it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm that smart. We definitely need some other engineers on board to figure that out. But I can do a lot of dumb stuff, relatively quickly. That was my advantage up until a couple months ago. But now I just do dumb stuff at some point in time.
What would you say are some of the things that like you feel Tavern can do? And I think we might have touched on some of them, but maybe we can expand on it. What do you think are some of the things that Tavern can do that, other non Web3 enabled platforms can't do? And how are you leaning into that? Because I think that
Yeah,
that's probably one of the most interesting pieces of like what you're building.
yeah, absolutely. You know, when we started down this venture about creating, audio streaming, the idea was to try to get it to decentralized audio streaming where people can run nodes and participate in more of like a not peer to peer, but like, WebRTC host your own and then people connect to your servers and you get paid in some tokens for doing so. And that facilitates the transmission and being able to be non deplatformed. I don't know what the right word for that word is. But the idea is that like, you know, you can't have someone like Elon come and be like, I'm going to censor these type of conversations, and that has negatives, and obviously you have to figure out a way. But you have clients, like Warpcast and Farcaster, or you have the protocol like Farcaster, and you have Warpcast that can censor themselves, but at the end of the day, the data is always there. Um, and I always felt like that was really interesting for streaming. But at the same time, I think just the token layer itself, being able to integrate with wallets and with your, even decentralized social network, and that's even like who do you send transactions to? Like that's technically a social graph. Um, even if it's a contract, which I think is very interesting. Like how many people interact with these contracts? Technically, you are pseudo connected to these people. One of the things we thought about was like, people who use um, like these DeFi protocols and particular ones, and they have their own smart contracts, like they're in their own social networks. And like, could we take advantage of that and basically start offering like, hey, people that are using the products that you use on Web3, maybe there's a way for you to build a community around that. because that's what I really like is like I love DAOs. I think DAOs are the future of organization, um, mainly as Web3 just becomes standard web, right? Where you don't have to delineate between Web 2 and Web 3, just like we didn't really delineate between Web and Web 2. No one was like, this is Web 2, right? It's just something that came about when we had like this crypto enabled Rails, when that just becomes finance. And I think DAOs become really these tribal functions or tribal communities. And discovering the other ones just based on normal activity that you use, I think is going to be something really cool that we can offer through Tavern. And taverns were always meant to be more intimate, not private, but more intimate in nature. Where it's great to have thousands of people come on, but really, I think the advantage is when you have something like 10, maybe max 100 people, where there's more of a deeper knowledge set, than just like a marketing broadcast.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for me, one of the reasons why I really enjoyed Clubhouse was the ability to connect with people that I otherwise would not have, and the ability to ask questions and to, I guess, hear from them. To not to be too repetitive here, but in an intimate way, what some of their thoughts were, in terms of like what they were building or just generally with their philosophy, and then help influence at least, or maybe sometimes help to validate some of the things that I was considering or thinking as well. And I think Tavern has a similar value proposition in terms of like allowing you to connect with people that would maybe otherwise be inaccessible. And I've seen that, right? I've seen some of these spaces start to develop in that way. Us at Crypto Sapiens, for instance, we run our social club there, but there's an opportunity to kind of expand on some of what we do in those club calls, beyond just what we currently do. That, not to say that it's not valuable, because what we do currently is to celebrate what each of us in that club are currently doing on chain, which is, I think, maximum importance, especially if we believe in the technology and we believe in kind of what the global impact of it could be. So, agreed. I think that there's an opportunity to, create these intimate spaces to make an impact, but to extend that through the connection with people who otherwise would not be, accessible to us through other
Yeah, and I
platforms.
think that's one of the terms I've been kind of thrown about is like we prefer inclusivity versus exclusivity. And now you might have an inclusive or an exclusive sort of social club, but it's permissionless in the sense that all you have to do is get a token, or do some activity. But the information and things that are shared are inclusive, where anyone can go, watch, listen, engage. And I think that's important because if you just have these super private tribal places that don't have any spotlight on them, I think you start to get this crazy biasness and you get a lot of feedback loop, that can be pretty negative culturally. And so, and that's why I know people have really demanded like, oh, it'd be really great to have like these private taverns, which I can easily do. That's like not a problem. It's more of a fundamental choice of if everyone starts doing that, one, I actually get a lot less. I get a lot less marketing from it because no one can come check those out. But at the other time, it's really more important that I don't want those type of conversations to happen. And so I want them to be more open so people can see if they want to get involved, or people are sort of put on the spotlight to be like, hey, you can say whatever you want, but at the same time, there are other people listening, and you got to be cognitive about that. I think one of the things were like I heard with the late night crew that like someone there was a rumor that Dan showed up as an Anon user and was listening in. Well, I don't know how they could prove that. It would be very, very tough unless I were tracking the IP of the device he was using and like would compare it. But that's even that is difficult.
I think V is his Anon account.
Those be yeah, and so, but like he can just show up as like a silver bear or whatever, right, and just listen. Um, and people were like, "Oh, should we not say certain things?" And I'm like, I don't know, if you believe something and you're truthful about it, then yeah, just say it. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously, even myself, I have meetings with my co-founder, and he's still hesitant about doing those on Tavern. I want to do them on Tavern. I don't care. I'm like, whatever. I'll talk about our finances. I'll talk about the history of the company and things that the decisions we're making. I think that's awesome. I want to take the entire company public in that sense. Like, put on the spotlight, right? Make decisions publicly. I think, that I think more organizations can benefit from that. So, but he's still a little hesitant, and he thinks it will scare investors off, which, may have already happened anyways.
I think, to be fair, culturally speaking, those are very different ways of operating a business. I think the more traditional route is like the way your co-founder is thinking. But I think in crypto specifically, we've proven that building in public is the way.
Yeah.
And, when you build in that transparency from the very beginning, I think it helps to I think there are two things that happen. One, you're sharing these things publicly. If there's a community building around your product or your idea, your brand, there is a stronger sense of connection between you and that brand, you and that story, because it's being developed right in front of your eyes. You could potentially even participate
Yeah.
in how that story develops. But two, and probably what happens before that is as you share your story, right? Then you have an ability to express what your values are, right? Like the what your guiding principles are as you're building this product, which allows for individuals to understand if this aligns with their own personal values and what they want to see in the world, and then become advocates and community members of your brand and your product, which then again feeds into that cycle like I shared earlier.
Yeah, well spoken. That was, yeah, exactly.
I love it. So, a question I have for you, and this kind of is inspired by Kristen, who changed their PFP when they were going live. Like, I think they put a circle around it to kind of highlight, like, hey, we're live. And I was like, oh, this is really cool because right now we can sign in with Farcaster and kind of go out, but still be Farcaster adjacent. But there's not really a way to say, like, hey, besides casting, right? Like, I'm live right now, kind of thing. Is that something you think is valuable to push stuff like that back into the timeline, or is that just like an extra step and, something that's actually really difficult for devs to start pushing, like, hey, we're on Unlonely, we're live, like, because I feel like that's one thing where I think Twitter Spaces has a big advantage is like seeing, oh, all of your friends are doing something right now in real time. You can join in. Like to know that a tavern's going on, you either have to have like subscribe to the channel calendar or put some sort of reminder kind of thing. I don't think most people just like have it open in the background and are browsing looking for live spaces. I think they find out about it because of a cast, but it would be so cool, I think, if it was a little more integrated on the timeline. Is that something you think would be helpful, or do you think that would just, you know, mess up all like the intimacy of it? What do you think about that as the creator?
No, that is something that actually I've been talking to Kristen about it. And so what it's going to be is, so we need signature signing from the Farcaster account, which we can't get from frames. So like basically, if you come in from a frame, we can validate that you're the actual user coming in, right? Like you're the one who clicked the frame, you've been authenticated on the Warpcast app, and so we can prove that you are who you say you are on our app. But what we don't get is this signature, basically the the token that says I'm allowed to actually update or do things on behalf of my account. That's like create a post or create a cast, sorry, change my bio, change my PFP. So what I'm going to do is you can be prompted, or there'll be a button that you'll be like, tell people or go live on Farcaster. You would click that. It would actually force you to sort of re-log in. And so you would have to do the thing where you have to take the QR code. So you would have to take your phone or whatever, do the QR code login. I mean, again, it's a pretty long step. But then from there, it can actually then update your PFP with the highlight. It will update your bio to tell you which tavern you're on. So live on this tavern. It can also technically make a cast too that says like, "Hey, I'm live." And then it would probably keep that signature. I don't like keeping signatures. Like as an ambiguous app, I hate having permissions to update things, because if you're exposed, you're exposing other people's accounts across the network, right? I hate that. So I'd have to leave them only open until the tavern closes. And so, or if you left, right? And if you leave, I'll take the signature and basically reverse out what just happened, and remove that. And so you wouldn't have to do anything, because I would still have the signature for that period of time. So you are technically exposed. I do have pretty decent permissions. A lot of what I built, why it took so long, was to get permissions at least pretty correct. And so it would kill that. Sorry, cold. It would update that. And then another thing we're doing that I really want to do is, when chat is live, people can decide to post a comment through Farcaster as well. So you'll be able to highlight and be like, I want to make a cast about this comment, and it would go into the thread. Because one thing about adding chat inside Tavern is that we would be losing sort of the broadcast nature of people actually adding questions into the thread of when I post the Tavern. I think it's actually why I won the 2 days in a row of the $5, is because my Tavern threads, even though it was from a bot, were getting really active, because people were adding questions and liking it and like engaging into that content, which was pretty awesome. And I want to keep that. So you'll do something where you'll be able to highlight something and make a quote, or like basically make a chat, and then also through the same thing, as long as, again, we have your signature, we'll sign it and make a cast on your behalf for that. And so I think that there is these two ways of, like, you want intimacy, you want to add features that people like, but people still want broadcasting. I mean, there are public spaces, and I want them to be in our public taverns, and I want people to see that. So I think it's a great idea. And I was happy Kristen reached out and got me thinking about how to implement this.
All right, that is so cool. I was just like, okay, I caught like most of that because I'm like, Nanar sign ins. Like I had to think a little bit about that, but I appreciate the clarity and getting to hear your thought process around it, because it sounds like, you know, it's really cool, right, to be able to push things back to Farcaster. Because my biggest thing is I don't want people to miss out, and I feel like for a few months, gated chats were the meta. And even though I really like gated chats and I like some of that intimacy, a lot happens in them that could be very valuable on the timeline, right? Where if people were having that discussion in public, everybody could learn from it instead of just the 20 or 30 people. And there's definitely sometimes you just really want a small group. But I would say, like, most of what I actually see in gated chats could really be on the timeline most of the time and would help more people out. So anything I think that kind of ties the audio back to the text is very, very powerful, because if more people see it and more people are sharing, hey, this tavern's happening, and it's going out from, 30 accounts about the same topic, hopefully the algo will see that, show it to more people,
Yeah.
and then suddenly more people are in the space getting to hear. And you can just share information so fast on audio that would take me hours to like type it out and put it across different things. And if I cast, here's everything we talked about in 4 hours, even in summary style, the algo is just going to be like, Peachy, stop casting. What are you doing? Right? It's not going to show it to anybody. But if 30 people are sharing snippets of the conversation and getting more people to come join live, like that's a huge win, because like you said, now it really is building in public and discussing in public and forcing some of that content back into Farcaster so it doesn't just get lost in the audio sphere. So I love
Yeah.
that you're thinking about all this, because I think it's fantastic.
And then tomorrow I'm meeting with Matthew from events.xyz to tie in to where anytime you make an event, you can create a tavern, and then reoccurring taverns. This will probably be whitelisted permission to a few people, can have fixed URL instances. So like you can have like /power hour, right? That's tied. So anyone who goes to like tavern.fm /power hour can always get to, as long as it was recurring, can see the latest upcoming, but also see a history of the previous power hours or something like that. So I think that's going to be pretty awesome for people to like always know where to go, and for those like constant reoccurring taverns.
For me, that's definitely one of the more exciting propositions of what's getting built right now on Farcaster specifically, is the integration of all these tools, like you've mentioned here with events, and being able to leverage that as your calendaring and kind of way to maybe even RSVP to events and kind of create a much more um, inclusive space, I suppose, in terms of visibility of different creators that are using the platform. I know when I casted, I believe a day or two back about this space, someone replied very excitedly that they are a new creator. They're they don't necessarily feel comfortable with developing like this massive product experience or kind of content experience. They're looking for something that is able to provide them just enough in terms of like the resources necessary so that they can kind of start exploring or kick off their creator journey. And Tavern is, I think, in my opinion, one of those platforms that's perfect for that. For creators who are just getting started, I'm not saying that it's limited to them, of course, but it's a wonderful tool because all you need is either a computer you already own or your mobile device that you already own, and you can plug into that and you can just start connecting with a subject matter, showing your expertise in that subject matter, or even to connect with a community that you've already built, like what Pichi is doing with Power Hour and like what we're doing with Crypto Sapiens. So it's, I think, a really wonderful tool. And again, to just be able to create an integrated experience through that, it just makes it that much more interesting, in my opinion. There's also
Yeah,
some questions coming in from the live chat. I'll want to bring them in, but if you wanted to add something to your thoughts to what I've just said, let's
I'll just
tackle
add
that
one little
first.
thing is I think the what Farcaster provides and what Nanar extends is a payload or an authentication layer that allows easy like Lego bricks, right? Like you can make really complex structures from really simple things. And I don't think, and maybe they do get enough credit, but personally, I don't really see it. But I think they've done an amazing job of what they started building. And so it's why I can see in my head it's going to eclipse things like X because they give the power to people who can use those tools and like you said connect them together. Where me Tavern plus events is going to eclipse a lot if we were just doing it ourselves. Where I would have to go build a calendar feature, I would have to go integrate with all that stuff, which is kind of what you normally have to do. Where now we can just plug and play with each other, and I think that's going to be really powerful.
So one of the questions that's coming through Unlonely is from Nate 0.eth, and they say some related questions. How do you see the live events landscape, especially around the Farcaster ecosystem? Would love to hear about the choices you've made to differentiate and serve a specific audience. And what are some of the uses on the platform that have surprised you? So maybe we'll address the kind of live events landscape on Farcaster and how you're building a unique product, which I think you already touched on a few ways. And then for the people that are coming onto Tavern, have there been any use cases that have been quite surprising for you and potentially delightful as well?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more interesting as we start to scale to more and more taverns simultaneously that are happening where discovery becomes a bit harder. Obviously, we haven't hit that yet. I mean, I think we only have had two taverns that ever happened at the exact same time, like maybe twice. Um, but we do have tagging, and I want to combine like channel specific things or being able to set things that you're interested in. And so you can get notified of those events. Better following features. So I can better when I bring in my social network from Farcaster, I can like double click on someone and be like, okay, tell me when this specific person joins a tavern or starts a tavern, and then like actually send me a notification from that. I think those are really powerful features for discovery. Um, and then in terms of things that I've been surprised is chat. I mean, I seriously thought that people did not want chat; they just wanted the audio. And so I just purposely didn't build it. I was just like, nah, I don't want it. And that kind of shocked me. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, that was kind of one of those moments where like the devs are dumb. Like I am so myopic on like what I want to build, which was like this audio streaming experience. I completely missed um, what also people wanted was chat. And so that was something where I'm like, okay, I really got to get chat done, but I also don't want to just throw in like a stupid chat. I want to do something that's meaningful or supportive of the audio nature, um, and in a good way. And a lot of that is surfacing good Q&A questions. So things where, um, you can, like, it's not like a Twitch chat where like nothing ever important gets said. It's just like a complete dump, which is fun in its own right. But I want it to where people can highlight or react to a certain question or to a certain statement, and that floats up to the host and speaker so they know what to talk about or what to mention. Also, one thing that I think even was said last night, and in Bias's space, is the memory hole. Someone said you should let people chat before the tavern even starts. So if I go and schedule a tavern, like, let the chat keep going. Like, let that be the context for what's going to be talked about, because a lot of really interesting things can be said. And I was like, yeah, that's absolutely important. And then people can react to those things. And so you could already have a list of topics and a list of questions you can address right off the bat, right? And I also think that creates an incentive layer for also people RSVPing, where you can't chat unless you say you're going. And so that's a really good incentive for, okay, how many people are actually going to be at this tavern at the time I started, which I think is important. I think knowing, the expectations for your tavern is really good. So those are things that have surprised me for sure. And I'm sure there will be a lot more. Like even the go live thing that Kristen came up with, I was like, holy shit, that's such a good idea.
Like, how did I
Um,
miss that? That seems like
yeah,
low-hanging fruit.
exactly. So I think, and again, I'm a person who wants to be very, very engaged, because I'm building this for myself as well. So it's not a product that I'm like, oh, I'm just building because I think it's a way to make a lot of money. I'm like, really? No, this is a product that's probably going to lose a bunch of money, but I really, really like it. And so listening to people is really fun, and everyone has really good ideas. And if you respect their time of coming to you and articulating features and obviously bugs, then really important things can come out of that, or really special things.
To your credit, you are very active on Farcaster, asking for feedback and hosting events on Tavern 2 for people to give you feedback in person too.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely. I think that's important.
I sincerely appreciate that you pop into so many spaces. I'm like, I can't believe you have time to do this, but it's awesome. Like it feels like you're leaning in, and that's something I think that is magical about Farcaster is that like founders use their own products and they will
Yep.
like show up, right? Like Matt's always checking on me to say like, "Hey, is your events XYZ working correctly?" Or sometimes he'll ask me, "Why'd you use the beta site?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't even know how to access the beta site. I definitely didn't do that on purpose. I just clicked the composer action. Like clearly I found a bug, right?" But having you like in the spaces so you can see kind of how they go and how people use them is like crazy awesome. And I just really appreciate that because I know that you're hearing us. And for the chats, I love that idea of um, I definitely see people use it in two ways, right? Like some people just don't want to talk on audio, so they want to participate in the chat, and it gives folks, especially folks who don't speak English natively and maybe are nervous about talking, gives them a voice. But then I really love your idea of being able to highlight things to the host and the speakers that are questions, because sometimes folks don't want to interrupt the flow and so they want to like say something or they want to add to it or they want people to go deeper, but they don't want to jump in and stop them or wait for that breaking point. So I just love that idea that you're really thinking about, how does a chat work so it doesn't just become a Twitch stream of all little hearts and thumbs ups,
Yeah.
like because that's not as useful, right? But it does have uses for people who want to have that side conversation or say, here's something, I'd like to hear the speakers talk about, or here's my opinion on this, but I don't want to come up just to say these 5 words type thing. Like, I love that you're thinking about how do I make it an engaging experience and not just like a Twitch stream of conscious, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's going to take time, but I think it is equally as important now, as the audio, is to have that combination of things. And then also like the reverse is polling. I think being able to like ask the crowd, hey, I'm going to put a poll up and like get feedback from folks, right? It could just be simple as yes or no or whatever. I think those are really important. And then giveaways. I think that's where you start to tie it back into the Web3, where, once we really turn on the crypto rails aspect of it, you could do random on-chain randomness stuff and like give away someone something or give everyone something. That kind of stuff is really cool.
I know Peachy's ears perked up to that because I think Peachy is tremendously successful at doing those type of activations.
Well, just how cool would it be, right? Like we already have POAPs, right? Like our
Yeah.
proof of attendance. So what if, we can now tie in POAPs or NFTs into like, you came to Power Hour, you hung out, you asked questions, you participated in the poll, you did stuff, right? Like I don't want to pressure people into talking, but I do want to reward them for engaging. And if you're building all these new layers in, that's something that's really easy, right? You participated in the poll, you participated in the chat, you did whatever, you're still there, you're still part of the conversation in your own way, and having proof of that, like it can add up. And again, it could be a good way to go and look for like, you know, Farcaster is struggling with like who is real and who is not. And I think anybody who doesn't believe that doesn't use Farcaster enough.
Hmm.
So I think having these kind of tangentially related things where we're signing in with Farcaster and now we can start to pass that data back is important because they haven't figured out perfectly how to get rid of the bots and the spammers and the airdrop farmers and the people who aren't really there for the right reasons, right? Like, but people who tend to come to these spaces and hang out on Unlonely and hang out on taverns, like these are the users you want, and being able to reward and engage them, I think is important because the people who show up for these spaces, that's the people I want to interact with on my timeline. I know they're real. I know they're trying their best. I know they're human, and I want to make sure that I can elevate them any way I can. So yeah, I did perk up. I'm getting all excited just thinking about it.
And one thing in addition to that is, which I've seen go the opposite, where the platform makes the incentive decisions on behalf of everybody. We're like, no, hey, Peachy, you actually need to incentivize your users this way. Like, this is how it works. I want to make it flexible to where you figure out the incentive systems and the rewards that you want to give your users and set up um, like a badge system or some system where like, oh, if you've done this many polls or this many things, I can reward you with this stuff, which highlights you and maybe bumps you up, like more of a programmatic way to highlight users in taverns. um, so it's like less us making decisions on behalf of people creating taverns and y'all just using the tools that we make, that allow you to do that, which is why I don't personally want to do like Moxie giveaways or like, oh, if you use Tavern, everyone who uses Tavern is getting Moxie, like that kind of stuff, because I don't think everyone wants that. Maybe some do, and that's cool. And I want to set up a system where they can then offer that. But like, I wanted that's like the toolbox approach that I'm trying to figure out for incentives, which I think is going to be, it's much harder, but is kind of fun in its own right too.
I love it. So speaking of incentives, can I ask the elephant in the room question? Like, are you thinking about Moxie? Like, what's your thought patterns around that?
Well, again, it would be something in my toolbox where if y'all were to be like, hey, we want to work with Moxie. Like, I don't know how that actually manifests with them, because it's more of like their centralized airdrops where they have something they build from like it's an off-chain API that they then deliver Moxie, and then you have an on-chain claim. So it's not permissionless. So I would say if y'all had a bunch of Moxie and y'all were to give your Moxie out, we could have a contract that you could deploy that could service that as an airdrop permissionless thing based on the criteria that you set. Like, oh, you have to meet these things in a tavern, and then you can sort of proxy the Moxie to them. Or if we work with other meme coins or whatever, and they want to be more permissionless, we can offer you that toolkit. But again, we won't make that for everyone. We're not going to say, hey, everyone who makes a tavern gets Moxie. That's just not something I want to do. But I want to make it available as a tool for you and your users to offer that.
I mean, I think that's a wonderful way to go. I think it needs to be flexible and composable, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about here, right? You need to provide that flexibility and composability through different like tokens and also in terms of like creator preferences. So that sounds like an excellent kind of way to go about that too, in my opinion.
And it keeps us out of this, why aren't you doing this meme coin, but you're doing this meme coin? It
Right.
keeps you out of that. I'm like, no, 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 no. You have the tools to do whatever you want, we're just here to facilitate that. We're not making any preferences. We're not, king making here, which can definitely happen.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of where we want to be. I mean, we're also still a U.S. based company. I don't think we have the facilities to even make sure. I mean, freaking OpenSea got a letter from the SEC about all NFTs are securities, and now all artists are criminals. So, like, you know
Oh my
what?
gosh, we're all gonna go to jail
Yeah,
together,
we're
right?
all
It's
going to
gonna be
jail.
fantastic. It's
Yeah,
gonna
it's
be
gonna
the
be great.
best party ever, Farcaster jail. I can't wait it. Like we were worried about Moxie jail, right? And now we're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
go to
yeah,
real
yeah.
jail. I mean, this is getting exciting, guys. Like felonies every day. Let's do
Dude,
it.
that's just a whole other conversation. But it's kind of funny because I want this to come to the Supreme Court. Sorry for the non sequitur, but like I want it to go to Supreme Court so we can actually have like an out loud like situation where we can explain, like people can, hopefully experts can explain what's going on and teach these uninformed people like what the hell, what the hell this is, because it's just crazy. It's mind-boggling for us who know, right?
But it's related, right? Because this is gonna become a mintable podcast, right? So like right now we're all committing a felony because we know it's going to be a
Yeah.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
so it's hilarious, right? That like now, because taking aside, right, like art NFTs and music NFTs, but then the fact that audio spaces could become NFTs, like I could take. I don't right now because Humpty and I had actually a long discussion about what it means to put an audio space as an NFT, that it's forever on the blockchain, and that's very different, and maybe not everybody in my tavern is really consenting to that, so I purposely don't mint them, but I
Hmm.
keep a copy in case people want to listen. But it's like the thought of audio spaces and audio conversations becoming NFTs, and then that makes us all criminals for having a conversation. Like this is now a First Amendment right issue. And I mean, it's going to be great. Like I can't wait for the ACLU and all these other people to get involved because this is going to be, it's a fun distraction. I don't
Is
think
this
it's
the bull run? Is this
serious,
going to trigger a
but
new bull run for NFTs? I think this
A
might be
hundred
it.
percent.
I
I
mean,
think so.
it could, right? Because you're gonna see. I bet by the end of day, as more and more artists across the world kind of wake up and like feel for their American friends, like you're gonna see a bunch of art about this, right? And a bunch of memes and a bunch of jokes. But at the same time, like this is really serious because if we can go to jail for making a podcast, like I'm all for it. Let's do it, right? Because this is like the stupidest thing the SEC could possibly do. And instead of fighting, I'm going to lean in and just create even more content and make even more NFTs, because I want to at least go to like good Martha Stewart prison for 5 to 10 years. Like
Club
I don't
Med.
want to go to like shitty prison. I want to go to nice
Yeah, you
white
want to
collar
go to the
prison.
nice one. Like, can we all have like an NFT prison where we just make
That's
art all
right.
day?
Yes, like the classes are going to be amazing, right? But
Yeah.
like this is a thing, right? Like the creator economy is starting to thrive, and we are finding ways to like buck the system left and right, and the system is going to come for us, and we always knew it. We always knew crypto was on the chopping block. I just don't think any of us thought it was this much on the chopping block, but this affects all of us now because if an audio space and a musical song could be an NFT, because anything could be an NFT, right? A PDF or presentation. Like, I can't wait till authors lean in and start making their books NFTs so that their books are now illegal. Like we've been through this whole banned books, burning books. Like, let's burn NFTs for jail, right? So it's hilarious, but it's also it's an attack on all creators, and I think this is just gonna not work out in their favor, and it's just going to make us stronger and stand together and encourage even more minting and more things on chain. So I'm actually excited. I'm like, come at me, bro. Let's go, SEC.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we reach the top of the hour, if you can believe that, I wonder if there's anything that we missed that you think we should make sure that we cover here as far as we're talking about Tavern specifically.
I mean, honestly, it's just go experiment, go make whatever you want and see what
Hmm.
happens. I mean, you have the power to completely delete it and destroy it. And I wish there was a way to better prove destruction. Like destruction literally kills everything about your tavern. It's a full delete. It is not a soft delete. That's something I've been very, it's been very important to me. Um, and I need to figure out a way to like, how do you prove that? But, sorry, I'm
Maybe
about to
make it
choke.
an NFT. No.
Yeah, let's prove that we've
Proof
deleted something by
proof
adding
of
something
burn.
permanent to the chain. That's pretty ironic.
But yeah, so I just go make something, see what happens, post it, see if you can get some people, talk about whatever you want to talk about, and then if you don't like it, just destroy it. Or like after 5 minutes, if you get bored, just destroy it too. I mean, that's all. I mean, obviously you don't have to, but it's fun. It's fun to play with. Yeah, that's it. Other than that, just keep yelling at me about things you want, and bugs you find. That's about it.
So my question on that is, what's your preferred contact method? Would you prefer people DC you, post publicly in the tavern channel? Like, how would you like to receive feedback that's the most, meaningful and easiest for you to sort through?
Yeah, I'd say start with Tavern and always at me. I don't have that many followers to where I get overwhelmed. Um, and At some point, I'll probably tell you like, oh, just DM me and we can chat on the side. Um, we do have a Discord. Not saying you need to use it, but that is also another way if you prefer Discord, if you're like a heavy Discord user, because the asynchronous chat on Discord is better because it's not decentralized, so it is faster, and I can respond to those really quickly. I live on Discord, so simultaneously both Farcaster, but before that it's been Discord for like 10 years.
Rad. Well, thanks so much, Brennan, for coming up. I'm very excited to have learned much more about Tavern and Peachy, of course, for the amazing questions that you always bring to the stage. For everyone who's been following us, our journey for this podcast on Unlonely, bit of alpha, we've been making sure that we get the wallet addresses, so you might have a little gift coming soon. More on that later. Uh, and then, yeah, we hope if this has been useful as a resource in terms of what this podcast tries to cover, let us know. We also do have our channel on Farcaster. It's Crypto Sapiens. We are going to be revisiting this topic in the future, and any feedback you can give us is always going to help improve the content as well. So, yeah, we'll see you again on the next pod. Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.